All right, let's dive right into this explainer and look past the bright sunshine of California to uncover the truly eerie reasons entire towns just get wiped off the map. You know, when we think of the Golden State, we usually picture beautiful beaches, Hollywood dreams, glittering cities. But today, we're exploring a much darker side hiding right beneath that golden surface. We are looking at towns that once promised immense fortune and a brilliant future. But today, well, today they sit totally empty, erased from modern maps, and are just slowly returning to dust.
And it's a massive contrast, isn't it? It perfectly illustrates the gap between the California we all expect and the absolutely apocalyptic reality of its forgotten settlements. On one hand, you have the endless, booming expansion of modern metropolises, but on the other, you have places buried deep in mountain passes and sinking into forgotten valleys. We're talking about places characterized by toxic dust and what the state officially calls arrested decay. It's a fascinating yet deeply unsettling duality.
So, what really wiped these towns off the map? It's super easy to just assume they all ran out of gold or silver, right? But we're looking way beyond the standard mining bust today. We want to expose the eerie curses, the bitter political controversies, and the engineered, man-made disasters that truly killed these towns. The unsolved secrets left behind in these ruins are far more complex, and frankly, far more terrifying than just a dried-up mine.
Section 1. Eerie Curses and Mob Justice, the Lawless and the Doomed.
Back in the late 1800s, mountain towns like Panamint City weren't just rough around the edges, they were absolutely lawless. When you cram thousands of outlaws, gamblers, and gunfighters into narrow, isolated canyons overnight, the justice system basically evaporates, and a very dark kind of history takes over. Now this number 400, that represents the 400-pound silver cannonballs that Panamint City forged just to stop outlaws from stealing their wealth. This town literally started when 3 fugitives hiding from the law stumbled onto a rich silver strike. It became so violently lawless that Wells Fargo completely refused to operate there. No way. Robberies were so constant that mine owners had to cast their silver into massive 400-pound spheres that were just way too heavy for bandits to haul off on horseback. It's a crazy, perfect physical monument to just how wild this canyon was before a flash flood eventually wiped the whole place out.
And that brings us to Bodie. Up at over 8,000 feet in the eastern Sierra, Bodie was so famously violent it actually spawned its own catchphrase. The killings were so incredibly common among its 10,000 residents and 65 saloons that Bad Man from Bodie entered the local vocabulary. But today, the place sits completely frozen in time. The state park system keeps it in that condition of arrested decay we mentioned earlier, meaning they don't rebuild it, they just keep it from falling down. You can literally peer through the windows and see dishes still sitting on tables and actual coffins just waiting in the mortuary.
But here's the wild part. The real protection for Bodie, it doesn't come from park rangers. It comes from an eerie, lingering legend. The story goes that anyone who steals even a single nail from Bodie is cursed with terrible luck. And people believe it. The park actually receives packages every single year from tourists mailing back stolen artifacts, accompanied by these desperate letters describing the brutal misfortunes that followed them home. It's essentially a ghost town, still actively enforcing its own rules from beyond the grave.
Then there's Skidoo. The story of Skidoo is this absurd, macabre sequence of mob justice. It started in 1906 with gold discovered at 6,000 feet high in the Panamint Mountains. By 1908, a man killed a popular saloon keeper in a drunken dispute. Well, the town didn't bother waiting for a trial. An angry mob dragged him right from the jail and hanged him from a telephone pole. But here is where the story gets truly bizarre. According to local legend, the body was cut down and then actually hanged again the very next day, simply so a newspaper reporter who arrived late could photograph it. Some accounts even say they hanged him a third time for another photographer. It is a chilling, actually a terrifying example of the rough justice that dominated these doomed communities.
Section 2. Utopian Dreams, Political Failures. A Perfect Society in the Desert?
Shifting gears from the rough justice of the mountains to these sociological experiments of the desert, we have Llano del Rio. This place held incredibly ambitious promises. This wasn't about extracting gold. This was about engineering a flawless human society from scratch. It was founded in 1914 by a socialist lawyer named Job Harriman after he lost the Los Angeles mayoral race, and the goal was absolute equality. Over 1,000 people moved to the sun-scorched flats of the Antelope Valley to share the land, share the labor, and share the profit. They built hotels, a print shop, a rabbitry, even their own newspaper and school. For a brief shining moment out there in the California desert, the dream of a perfect society seemed totally real.
But it only took 4 short years, just 4 years, for severe water rights disputes and internal political infighting to completely shatter that utopian dream. The wells simply couldn't support the growing population, and intense conflict over leadership just tore the community apart from the inside out. Today, if you go out there, you'll just find crumbling stone foundations, arched doorways framing empty sky, and rusted pipes jutting from the sand. It stands out there as a stark monument to idealism colliding violently with the brutal reality of desert politics and resource scarcity.
Section 3. Engineered environmental disasters. Sacrificed for progress. Now we're getting into the climax of our explainer. We're talking about towns that didn't just naturally fade away, but were actively destroyed by massive, systemic environmental choices. Places effectively sacrificed for the progress of other, wealthier cities. Look at Drawbridge. It's a tragic example of the transformation of the San Francisco Bay. Back in the 1870s, this was a thriving duck hunting paradise for wealthy San Franciscans. We're talking hotels and hunting lodges built right on the tidal sloughs. But the town was completely doomed when massive environmental shifts were engineered around it. The wetlands were diked and drained for salt production, the duck populations plummeted, and the bay became heavily polluted.
Today, Drawbridge is literally rotting right into the marsh. It is California's last true ghost town that is actually illegal to visit. It's entirely surrounded by protected wildlife refuge land. You can't drive to it, you can't walk to it. It is this eerie, mysterious ruin visible only if you're looking out the window of a passing Amtrak train or maybe paddling by in a kayak at high tide, watching its collapsing houses tilt in slow motion into the mud. And well, that brings us to Bombay Beach on the Salton Sea, a place so apocalyptic it practically defies explanation. It has literally been referred to as an environmental crime scene, and when you look at the facts, it is really hard to argue otherwise. This isn't just a town that died, it's a town trying to survive in the aftermath of a catastrophic ecological collapse.
This whole tragic chain reaction kicked off in 1905 when an accident involving irrigation canals breaking open accidentally created California's largest lake right in the middle of the desert. Fast forward to the mid-century, and it was being heavily promoted as a booming resort paradise. We're talking yacht clubs, celebrity visitors, the whole 9 yards. But since the lake has no outlet, the salinity spiked massively over time. And today, the beaches aren't covered in sand. They are covered in the crushed bones of millions of dead fish. The sea is rapidly shrinking, exposing a toxic lakebed that blows hazardous dust right into nearby communities, causing rising respiratory illnesses in children.
These events really force us to ask some deeply uncomfortable questions being raised by the locals. Did the government intentionally let the sea die? Scientists warned for decades that the Salton Sea was dying, yet restoration plans were just systematically ignored. Some locals firmly believe the state deliberately sacrificed this entire area to navigate complex water politics, choosing to send vital water to wealthier coastal cities while maintaining the basin merely as an agricultural runoff dump. While the exact truth is buried in decades of convoluted water politics, the devastating toxic result for the people living there is absolutely undeniable.
Section 4. An apocalyptic warning. The ghosts of tomorrow.
When you look at the bizarre aftermath of places like Bombay Beach, where these incredible weird art installations and sculptures are now rising out of the toxic salt flats among abandoned trailers, you reach a pretty unsettling takeaway. These ruins have a lot to teach us. These towns weren't just accidents of history. Whether it's the arrested decay of Bodie, the unsolved secrets of those lawless mountain towns, or the toxic dust of the Salton Sea, they are physical monuments. They stand out there as testaments to eerie choices, extreme human behavior, and massive, massive environmental compromises. They show us exactly what happens when resources are mismanaged, when justice is abandoned, and when whole communities are sacrificed for the supposed greater good.
And that leaves us with a genuinely chilling thought to ponder long after this explainer ends. As we constantly engineer our own environments, argue over modern water rights, and witness changing climates, what modern cities will become the ghost towns of tomorrow due to our choices today? Which of our current glittering cities are we inadvertently erasing from future maps? It's something